Imagine your life as a well-charted map. Paths, coordinates, risk analyses, every move planned for maximum efficiency and absolute control. For Noah Matthews, spreadsheets weren't just for work. They were philosophy, comfort, armor against uncertainty. He'd spent his entire adult life perfecting routines, minimizing variables, and believing with a stubborn pride that chaos was for dreamers and the ill-prepared. But sometimes the ocean calls us in a voice so powerful, so unsettling, that no map or plan can prepare us for the tide about to sweep in. I want you to close your eyes and picture a day just like any other. Gray clouds over Seattle, the city waking in its usual drizzle. You're sitting by your kitchen window, mug of coffee warming your palms, checking emails, lining up Zoom calls when your phone rings. The number is familiar, but what greets you isn't a familiar voice. It's panic, fear, and a sentence that spirals your world off its axis. Your sister, Anna, accident, ICU, you. Barely feel yourself move. The house empties of presence, routine, gravity. There are packing cubes, car keys, a playlist left running from last night, echoing a certain refrain, the one you've always skipped over because it made you feel exposed. But not today. Today, letting go is all that's left. And for the first time, you begin to sense there is no safety on the shore. Very soon, you are about to be called out upon the waters. Noah could have told you, with almost mathematical certainty, where he'd be on any given weekday. Mondays at the gym by 6, Fridays virtual trivia with friends, Sundays running errands, meal prepping for the week ahead. He liked the predictability. He craved it. But on this particular Tuesday, March 14th, a date he would never forget, the ordinary shattered. The first rays of dawn pressed through rain-beaded windows, giving everything a watery glow. Noah was halfway through his briefing notes when his phone buzzed insistently, an unwanted interloper into his otherwise smooth morning. It was Leah, Anna's college roommate, now a close family friend. Noah hesitated before answering. Leah calling this early usually meant drama, a misplaced cat, a canceled brunch, one of Anna's latest artistic misadventures. But today, Leah's voice vibrated with a panic so raw it sliced through Noah's defenses. "Noah, I'm so sorry. Anna's in the hospital. There's been an accident. She's in the ICU at Crescent Bay Medical. They don't know if she was..." Driving back, the storm, the roads were slick. I thought you should know. Every word that followed was muffled by the rush in Noah's ears. He let Leah's frantic explanations swirl away, as if they were caught in a riptide. Only one thing mattered. Anna needed him, and she needed him now. Noah's body acted before his mind caught up. He found himself pacing his small, orderly apartment, grabbing clothes without realizing, fingers tightening around a worn blue rain jacket Anna had once donated to. His cause of functionality over fashion. Socks, charger, toothbrush, the meditative steps of a man still running on autopilot. On his way out, he looked back, one last moment at the order he was leaving behind. The mug of coffee half finished, the stack of unread emails, the reassuring mess of everyday life paused as if the whole world was holding its breath. The GPS set for Crescent Bay, a tiny coastal town he'd only heard about in fleeting stories from Anna. He didn't care about the forecast, the winding highways, or the warnings of rock slides. The rain beat furious patterns on the windshield, mirroring his jumbled thoughts. The road paralleled the Pacific, miles of brooding gray surf, the headlamps of Noah's rented sedan illuminating sea spray and fog. Occasionally, the road disappeared, curves swallowed by mist, slick with the leftovers of last night's storm. Podcasts and news briefings, usually his companions, felt empty now. Seeking distraction, he let his playlist shuffle at random. And then, as if summoned by the moment, through the tinny car speakers came the opening notes of Oceans, Where Feet May Fail. He'd heard it before at Anna's place, her favorite song on days when life felt too heavy. Noah had always rolled his eyes, skipping this track for something more logical, less vulnerable. But now, as Taya Smith's ethereal voice sang, "You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown where feet may fail," something inside Noah shifted, cracked. He let the words fill the empty space, the fragile spaces where fear, love, and loss combined. The highway curved, ocean on one side, sheer cliff on the other. Noah tightened his grip on the wheel. He had never felt so close to losing control, and so willing to keep going. Noah barely noticed the passage of hours as the miles slipped away beneath him. When Crescent Bay finally appeared, it wasn't the sunlit coastal village from Anna's warm memories. It was water-streaked and ferociously windswept. The houses bore the battered look of generations resisting both time and tide. He parked beneath a crooked pine tree in the hospital's gravel lot, the air electric with storm residue. He could smell the ocean as soon as the car door opened, salt, kelp, something ancient and persistent that seemed to whisper, "Welcome, stranger. You're not in control here." Inside, fluorescent lights hummed cold comfort as he found the ICU. Leah was there, pale and shaken. She hugged him fiercely, tears threatening. Behind brave eyes. "They're not sure when she'll wake up," Leah said, voice cracking. "But she's alive. That's something, right?" Noah nodded, too choked up to answer. He sat beside Anna's bed, watching her chest rise and fall with machine-assisted regularity. Tubes and wires tethered her to life, their beeps and hums marking time more relentlessly than any clock ever had. Rain beat the window, the room echoing with the words from the song that now played in a loop in Noah's head. "And there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep, my faith will stand." Noah barely slept that night, the lumpy hospital chair his anchor to reality. He drifted in and out of uneasy dreams, Anna as a child running across tide pools, laughing at his fear of jellyfish. Anna painting wild landscapes of crashing surf in their parents' garage. Anna calling him to come closer, always closer, to where the waves broke hardest. Dawn crept over Crescent Bay, the storm calming. But Noah knew somehow that the true storm inside him was only just beginning. The next morning, Noah woke up to the sound of the sea. It was not a dream. He had woken up there, in the anatomical vinyl armchair of the hospital, feeling his body hardened, and the smell of alcohol mixed with the sea air. Anna, connected to the wires, snored quietly, alive but distant. Leah was no longer there. 2 glasses of cold coffee in the window betrayed the vigil. Noah felt the weight of the first news. Anna was still stable, but unconscious. With no forecast of awakening. The doctors said it was a matter of time. According to statistics, she would survive. But Noah had never trusted odds. He needed something more. He needed a sign. He felt childish wishing for it, but he couldn't help it. When he left the hospital, with the rising sun pushing through the clouds, Noah arrived at the beach of Crescent Bay. It was not a postcard. It was rocky, the sea dark and rough, the waves crashing mercilessly on the shores. The wind was almost biting. The seagulls fought over fish and garbage with high-pitched cries. The ritual of the villagers was to go on with their days, fishermen repairing nets, ladies walking with coats against the wind, teenagers playing on boards despite the cold. Noah stood there, standing still. He observed the cities behind him, the tire tracks on the sand, footprints almost erased by the last wave. At every interval, I imagined Anna running there as a child. I remember her always near the water, barefoot. Hair in the wind. She was the opposite of him. It always has been. It was then that he heard the deep sound of a voice behind him. "First time in the bay?" asked an elderly man, skin scarred by the sun, thin white beard, thick boots soaked in foam. Noah hesitated. He swallowed but replied, "Yes, my sister had an accident. I'm waiting." The old man nodded, as if he understood much more than Noah said in words. "The sea has many mysteries, boy. Those who have not been called do not understand. But who is called, he never forgets." He pointed to the horizon where dolphins leapt in the distance. "Do you believe in these things?" The fisherman let out a low laugh. "The sea doesn't care about those who believe, but sometimes he calls, and you can only answer. And then you find out who you really are. Beware if you hear the call." Noah was silent. The old man adjusted his hat, picked up a bucket of fish, and walked away, leaving a trail of footprints deep in the wet sand. The words kept hammering. Who is called, he never forgets. The wind was increasing. Noah walked close to the water, feeling the waves wet his sneakers. He felt a shiver, cold, but also different, as if the ocean challenged him to take one more step. He remembered the verses of the song that were played in the car, now echoing in his mind like an old prayer. "You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail." On an impulse, Noah took off his sneakers and went to where the water covered his ankles. The shock of the icy water at the beginning of the day awakened in him a timid courage. The sea was indifferent, but it seemed to expect something from him. He stood there for minutes, eyes closed, feeling the roar of the wind and the fickle swaying of the waves. She thought about all the times she had tried to control her life, from the fear of rejection in high school to the dread of not corresponding to her own family. He always admired Anna. He never trusted her. Now, he needed her, and the sea. For the first time, Noah wished he didn't know what would come next. Just feel. He opened his eyes. Far away, a simple boat faced much larger waves. The old fisherman looked back, lifted an oar, and waved as if to say, "The journey begins only when you allow yourself to lose your ground." It was almost night when Noah woke up from an existential daze, a kind of sleep in which the body rests but the mind works unchecked. The hospital seemed even quieter. Anna was still in the same position, now a little paler, as if she were caught between two worlds. "Trust the process," the nurse said gently when she came to change the serum. "She feels your presence, even unconscious." Noah wanted to believe more than ever. Anna had always been his emotional anchor, the fearless, dreamy side that he could never accept in himself. Now, standing at his bedside, he found himself praying to something, someone who he didn't know existed. The clock was 10 p.m. when Noah risked leaving the hospital and walking along the beach again. The night sky over the Pacific was almost absolute in its darkness, dotted with few stars. The waves seemed bigger, more violent at night, and the wind brought old memories, almost erased. Pushed by the impulse of the inexplicable, Noah spotted an old canoe partially stranded near some rocks. The oarsman was the old fisherman, the lantern strapped to his chest, adjusting nets. "Do you need to go outside to breathe, son?" Noah hesitated, but replied with unexpected honesty. "I believe that she will wake up. I need to understand why I'm here." The old man studied his face, the eyes of someone who had seen many storms, survivors and castaways. Enters. "The more you try to control, the less you understand. Maybe it's time to learn from the sea." Noah climbed into the canoe. The impulse was irrational, but necessary. He didn't know how to row. He was the passenger, for the first time in a long time, accepting not to be the commander of himself. They rowed in silence. The lighthouse lit up ghosts of foam. The cities were far away. The solitude of the sea enveloped everything. Noah looked back, seeing the hospital as a dwindling, luminous point. The noise of the machines and glowing alarms became small in the face of the sound of the ocean. He was afraid, not of dying, but of losing control. He remembered the chorus of the song, "And there I find you in the mystery. In oceans deep, my faith will stand." The old man indicated a pause. "When I was young, I was thrown into the sea in a storm. I didn't think I would survive. But I learned that water does not drown those who stop fighting. We drown because we try to fight with the ocean. Learn to float. Give yourself something greater." Noah didn't answer. He just closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. The noise of the waves was deafening, but it seemed to have a rhythm, like a heartbeat. Noah was invaded by memories. Little Anna teaching him to swim. Laughing as he struggled, tense. Their father shouting from the dock, "Relax, son. No one learns to swim by fighting." The anxious look of a mother waiting on the beach. Noah realized that he had always been trying to survive on the surface. He had never learned to surrender. At that moment, when he felt the boat loose in the middle of the ocean, with the old fisherman by his side, he experienced the mystery. The idea that faith does not require control, it requires delivery. He opened his eyes. The old man smiled. "The sea teaches, but you have to choose to trust." Noah finally answered. He didn't. He just breathed and allowed himself to float, accepting for a moment the possibility that the answer might lie where logic can't. The night progressed, and Noah lost track of time. The ocean, which from afar seemed just a postcard or religious metaphor, was now raw material, cold, dark, unfathomable. Smaller waves crashed and rocked the canoe, and he realized slowly how heavy even the silence there could be. The old fisherman stared at the darkness, as if talking to his own abyss. Noah felt like asking how long the man had been doing it, but he knew that the answer, if it came, would not be measured in years. Every minute away from the coast, Noah's conscience fought against itself. "Why did I accept this invitation?" he thought. "Why did I leave Anna to come to the ocean with a stranger? What if something happens? What if I can't go back?" While these thoughts swirled, a larger wave made the canoe rock violently. Noah felt ice water hit his skin. The fright brought to light something much deeper than immediate fear, the memory of his old fear of drowning, never fully confessed to anyone. The canoe continued its uncertain back and forth. The smell of salt flooded his nostrils. Down below, beyond the touch of the oars, Noah felt the weight of the unknown. His mind was filled with questions. What if I can't get back? What if Anna doesn't wake up? What if it's all My fault. For never trusting her or anyone else. A few more waves, more dense silence. Then the old man finally spoke without turning his face. I have a question, Noah. What do you shy away from the most? Of losing someone, of losing control, or facing who you really are? Noah took a deep breath. The fear was there, almost palpable, but also a rim of desperate courage. I always needed to know the next step. I need to make sure no one gets hurt. I need to make sure Anna wakes up and... His voice cracked. The dark sea seemed even deeper. The old man then turned, this time with eyes shining in the dim light of the lantern. What if the next step is to trust even without seeing? The sea never shows the entire bottom. And faith sometimes is floating, even without knowing where the earth is. Noah realized that he struggled internally, to breathe, not to give in to the terror that held his chest and accelerated his heart. He remembered something old, buried. I was a child. Anna challenged him to jump off the tall rocks in the small summer dam. He denied, trembling, even mocked by his colleagues. You never try anything new, Noah. Years later, he realized that that voice was the same one that today prevented him from risking even happiness. Always an invisible barrier between him and courage. The canoe rocked again. Noah felt his body tense, his hands cold, his mind lit up with adrenaline. For a moment, he felt like throwing himself into the water, swimming for pure defiance, overcoming fear by force. But he realized it never worked like that. Suddenly, a larger wave hit the canoe from the side. In the blink of an eye, Noah found himself thrown into the icy water, his body being pulled down by tense muscles and the will to survive. He tried to fight, to brag, but the water was heavy, dense, disorienting. In the dark, he felt only the muffled noise of the sea and the bitter taste of salt invading his mouth. That was when, on the edge between despair and abandonment, he heard, or perhaps only felt, an internal low voice. My feet may fail and fear surrounds me. It was the music. It was Anna. It was the part of himself that so many times he suffocated to avoid pain and disappointment. His instinct told him to keep fighting, but a thread of memory of the old fisherman whispered through his subconscious. We drown because we try to fight with the ocean. Noah felt his strength run out. For a moment, he thought about accepting the ending. His chest burned. The world disappeared in dark blue. At that very moment, on the threshold between end and hope, Noah did what he had never done. He stopped fighting. He let go of his arms and legs. The fear was still there, but, strangely enough, it lost its strength to paralyze. Instead of sinking, he felt his body begin to float, carried by the current, but free. His thoughts flew to Anna. He remembered her messages on her birthdays. Courage is to keep going even trembling. The memory brought tears to Noah's eyes, even underwater. He decided to open up again. There came a sense of surrender, both physical and emotional. The body slackened, the fear gave way to something else, a vacuum, then a small flame. It was not certainty, it was not complete peace. It was acceptance of the mystery. Perhaps not everything needs to be answered. Noah thought about all the times faith seemed out of reach, and he realized in that moment that it can simply be giving in to what we don't. Control. When he realized, he was just floating. The water moved his body slowly. Above, the surface seemed tranquil, even welcoming. From the distance, the old fisherman's lantern cut through the night. Relax. Just let the sea go. The voice brought no judgment, only a firm tranquility. At some point, Noah felt his hands touch the edge of the canoe again. The old man pulled him inside, panting, exhausted, but paradoxically more alive than ever. "Now you know," said the old man, tapping him on the shoulder with gentle force. "The sea opens doors. You just have to trust in walking through them." Back in the canoe, enveloped by a new sensation, Noah saw the stars rise between the openings of the clouds. He took a deep breath, allowing himself to feel a strange gratitude, even for the fear he had felt minutes before. As they approached the shore, the old man was silent, as if he knew that no words would be enough. Everything had already been said in the silence, in the water, in fright, and in surrender. The hospital seemed distant, less threatening. Noah looked at his own hands. They were marks of salt. They trembled slightly, but not with fear. It was emotion. Suddenly she heard, almost like a whisper of the night breeze, an indistinct voice. It was Anna's memory, as if she were speaking there now. "I've always trusted you, Noah. Even when you didn't trust yourself. You just have to trust the next step." The old fisherman, already anchoring the canoe, interrupted his thoughts. "Every journey at sea has a mystery. You found yours today, but the mysteries do not end. They just change shape." Noah thanked him in a trembling voice, while he was still trying to process everything he had experienced. As he stepped back on the cold sand, he felt different. Not because his fear is gone, but because something had changed in the way the fear touched him. On the way out of the beach, next to the gravel and hammocks, he found an envelope, as if left on purpose by someone that last night. In it, there was a letter, written in her sister's firm handwriting long before the accident. The phrase, simple but sweeping, "Walk on water. Trust. The next step is deeper than you think." Noah closed his eyes. The wind ruffled her hair, and for the first time she wished not so much explanation, but courage to take the next step. The months added up like forgotten shells in the sand, first almost imperceptible, then forming lines, stories, memories that time was not able to erase. Anna and Noah learned to live with, no longer live despite what had happened to them. They felt recreated, but never complete, and perhaps that was true maturity. However, under the calm of the sea, there were always silent currents. On full moon nights, Anna was often overcome by vivid dreams. She saw herself swimming in deep water, searching for something she could never reach. Sometimes she was a forgotten figure in childhood, other times a reflection of herself in another. Time, other beaches, another chance. On those nights, I woke up with my heart racing, the sea wind blowing through shutters, bringing with it a whiff of change that I couldn't explain. During the day, in the interaction with Noah, small silences were present, not as walls, but as windows into themselves. Between one coffee and another, between the sound of dishes and the distant music that escaped from an old radio, questions arose that no one dared to verbalize. What haven't I discovered about myself yet? About the other? About this call that never ceases? The old fisherman, now scarcer but no less present, has become an incarnate symbol of this mystery. It reappeared at the threshold moments, the first thunderstorm of the summer, an unexpected storm, the first anniversary of a new beginning. And he always brought enigmatic advice, an interrupted story, a look that said, "It's not over yet." On a lost autumn afternoon, Anna walked alone on the beach, her feet dipped in the cold foam, her eyes fixed on the misty horizon. There, he felt the presence of the old fisherman without having to look at him directly. He stood beside her, silent. They both stood there, listening to the roar of the waves and the distant call of migrating seagulls. After a long time, the old man said, almost in a drawn-out whisper, "The sea holds secrets for everyone, Anna, but he only reveals it little by little. Not always for those who ask too much, but for those who accept to continue." Browsing. Those words echoed within her, more question than answer. And it was in this echo that Anna perceived a new restlessness being born, a desire to discover not only what the accident had left, but also what was yet to be experienced. What if the real calling was just beginning? What if there were still currents, archipelagos, and entire seas to navigate, stories of one's own and others waiting to be found in the depths of the unknown? That night, Anna and Noah looked at each other for a long time without having to speak. A new kind of courage radiated from there, the certainty that the mystery was an invitation. They felt ready to ask again, to come out of the shelter of the firm sand and let themselves be carried away by the current, not backwards, not attached to what they were, but forward, beyond the rocks, where the map is blank and the stars tell another kind of story. The sea ahead was as beautiful and threatening as ever, but they had already learned that life, in its fullness, is not the promise of answers, but of crossings. The next step? A new crossing. Perhaps together, perhaps apart, perhaps finding new voices, new places, new abysses, and always new reasons to have faith, even without understanding everything. The wind carried away the last sentence of the old fisherman, almost dreamlike. The horizon only exists for those who have the courage to cross. It was finally the call to follow, not the definitive end, but a new beginning. The mystery is not yet revealed, and that is precisely why the journey continues. At the end of the night, when the wind blows from the ocean and the house fills with moving shadows, everything seems to rest. The cutlery cleaned in the sink, the blanket folded carefully over the armchair, the breathing paused of the brothers, as if, for a brief moment, there was peace. But there, in the silence just before sleep, there is always a noise of the invisible, the crackling of the woods, the insistent rustling of the curtains, a faint smell of salt and unfulfilled promises. Anna lingers on the balcony, wrapped in the translucent veil of night, feeling the sea air stick to her skin, listening to the waves repeat secrets that she still does not understand. She contemplates the darkness of the sea as if looking into the mirror of herself, restless, unfinished, thirsty for answers that may only exist in the next dive. Noah passes behind her, guarding glasses, but gives her a complicit look. They both know that. The mystery never sleeps, even when the bodies finally rest. The ocean at that time is something else. It is no longer landscape. It is a character. It is an invitation. It is a threat. The smooth surface hides vortices, memories, apparitions. The distant glow of the buoys flashes a language of its own. Fish jump, inaudible through the dim light. And in the curve of the wind, Anna feels, without quite understanding, the subtle call of everything that cannot be seen. The routine ended up covering almost all visible wounds. But behind the comfort of the rituals, there is a hunger for adventure, for meaning, for ownerless questions. Anna and Noah have lived through their storms. They have already made mute pacts. They have learned to sew their scars with the thread of hope and the knot of fear. Only now the curve of history bends, and what was once survival becomes a desire for more, deeper, farther, more true. On the other side of time, the old fisherman walks only along the beach. His footsteps furrow the damp sand. The footprints disappear almost immediately, erased by the rising tide. He carries on his back the weight of 1,000 untold stories, and stuck in his coat pocket, a handful of closed whelks. He listens to the ocean the same way one listens to an oracle, waiting for the answers, even without asking new questions. The light of the lighthouse slowly sweeps the open sea, revealing, for a moment, then hiding again, shapes, shadows, perhaps presences. Something pulsates, just below the tranquil surface. Something awaits. And that's where the invitation gains a new voice. If you believe that miracles end when your eyes get used to the apparent peace, look deeper. The unknown never runs out. It transforms, hides, and reappears where you least expect it. Imagine, beneath the flat blue of the surface, there is a universe of stealthy currents, winged creatures, sunken objects, memories, and threats. There are gestures that change lives, decisions on. The edge of the abyss, letters to be delivered, meetings scheduled only by chance. The next episode begins when it finishes what you see. It starts when Anna hears her own name coming from the sea. Or is it just an echo of longing? When Noah approaches that old boat and notices, in the marked hull, symbols that resemble incomplete maps. When the fisherman whispers truths that only belong to those who dare to lose their ground. Because confidence, when it's real, is a groundless jump. It is a hand outstretched in the darkness. It's faith in the unseen, even though all the previous stories tell you to go back. Are you ready to cross this ocean with me? Feel how the call doesn't just come from the outside. It pulses on your skin, in your fear, in your remembrance of all that is yet to be experienced. Click on the next episode. Abandon any map. Find out, deep down, what miracles we are made of, when all that remains is the courage not to control, and the desire to be crossed by the current of the unknown. The miracle perhaps is just the beginning.